As she said, my name is Michael Buckle. I'm from Denmark, actually Copenhagen. And a lot of the previous speeches have been a lot about what to focus on. I'll be talking more about the how part. How do we actually get our employees the CX or the EX enhancement of understanding of customers and so on into organization. It's about the processes. A bit about myself. I wasn't predestined to go into creative work. I used to have a long time in the armed forces in Denmark where I worked with strategy, leadership and organizational development. I've done a lot of theoretical work in the army, but also a lot of practical sort of leadership. My sort of start of LEGO Serious Play was, I think I've just come home from Afghanistan as a commander, and I was going into this unit who were looking into new strategies, ways of working with strategy, for instance, for foreign missions and so on. So I went into my commander and he said to me, Michael, you are going down to Billund, Lego, to try out to play with Lego bricks. And I was young commander, sort of rising star, and I said, hey, why am I going? All of my macho genes were sort of saying, no way I'm going. No way I'm going to Lego to build with Legos. And then I went into my office and I had a bit of look around this new concept around strategizing. So I went back to my commander and said, okay, if I'm not to reach any higher level than major, just tell me to my face, don't send me down to Lego for a month to build Lego. But they persuaded me down there to work with this tremendous tool. And I've actually worked with it for a lot of years now, going near to 14 years. Done a lot of workshops with it. And also now training other people like Siete in how to use this tremendous tool. I've got some clients, past and present clients around LEGO Serious Play here. I'll get more into that later on. But let's just, what this day is all about the customer. So what actually faces our different organization? What faces the employee? A very complex task actually faces the employee. Because the modern customer is rather impatient. Like you had the Microsoft, Liam from Microsoft talked about that they'll become impatient if they don't feel sort of special. That you know everything about them. They're unloyal. They will switch to anybody else if they don't get what they want at your place or feel special there. They're rather speedy in their sort of way of making decisions. They're very conscientious around whether it was a good experience or a bad experience. They want to feel special. They're egoistic. They're complex. They've got rather big spending power, so they're quite interesting, these clients, customers. And also they are very connected. So if you sort of make a very good experience here with one client, you might get 10 extra clients. But if you lose the client there, you might lose 100. So the risks are quite high. So following a bit about so how do we actually work with this in everyday life is the big question. Is it actually done via big strategies? Nah. Perhaps it's every interaction that counts. So how do we get the employees into the thinking of every interaction counts with the client? How do we get them there? Well, we need them to understand more about the client and even faster than the competitors. We want our employees to do that. We also want them to apply this knowledge faster than everybody else so that we get an advantage. The customer gets an even better experience. Quite complex issue, this. So how have we gone about working with complex issues before? Well, at least there was a lot to do with strategizing and strategy making and so on, whether it was around sales or marketing. We knew that the world wasn't linear, but yet it was too complex, so we used linear tools in order to plan. But all of us knew that it actually looked like this. So, how do we actually work with a world that looks like this, that every interaction counts here, that you might have gone all this way here and then you lose the client here? bad news. It's all the way like it's playing like Ludos, back to the start again, starting all over again. So, actually, what we often do is that we tend to look into our toolbox, and if we only find a hammer, we all contemplate every customer as a nail. So we sort of decrease the complexity. We also do that with our employees, say, okay, yeah, I know it's complex, I know that there's 42 steps in buying a cup of coffee, but let's just look at 5 of them. So we decrease the complexity, and we might lose the client. So how do we work with this complexity? We actually need some different tools to do that, different processes in the training of our people in how we plan for different things, because we need tools that can facilitate changes, that actually can help us simplify what is complex. Also, to create a common overview of the chaotic and complex. It's not going to get any less complex with all the big data and everything. I mean, we get suffocated in impressions, and yet we need to deal with it. Identify possible solutions to challenges. We need to explore consequences, because we're often faced with taking decisions, a bit afraid about taking decisions, because what if I lose 10 clients tomorrow? Do I want to take that decision? And also be a catalyst for dialogue between employees to share knowledge around what really works and doesn't work. We also need to create sort of coherence within our organizations and overview. And we also need to collect information and knowledge sharing and build on top of that within our organization. So we're faced with quite some daunting task in order to get our organizations to do the right thing and move in the right direction. One way of doing this is actually using a very creative tool called Lego Serious Play. Does it work in every case? No. I'm not going to stand here and say it's the answer to all prayers. But it's one way, and I work with many different tools for planning and execution and doing it non-creative and also creatively. And it's actually one of the best tools I've found, because it actually, not because it's rocket science, but because you work in a way that's easier for the brain. So if you're to work with complexity, do it in a way that's easy for the brain, hence the employees. So what do we actually do? We actually build our knowledge in Legos following certain patterns, certain ways of building up complex knowledge. So Lego Serious Play is all about creating knowledge systems, using some special Lego bricks, some special applications and roadmaps. That's actually Lego Serious Play in a nutshell. So it's not actually the Lego that's most important. The Lego is the driver in order to be capable of dealing with the complex and creating knowledge systems that we can all work with around it. Was this actually intended for me to do a lecture on today, Lego Serious Play? No, it was not. It was actually part of the sort of saving plan for Lego. Because Lego lost a lot of money. And the owner of Lego, Kjell Christiansen, was a bit annoyed with losing 2 billion kroners a year. So he went down to IMD in Lausanne quite a number of years ago and said to 2 professors down there, I need to change the way we operate. I need to change the way we think every day. I want people to be proactive, seeing what matters, doesn't matter. How can we create better experiences for the customer, better products and so on. I want them hacked into understanding the world that surrounds them. How do I do that? Starting with the leaders. And they made some theories around this, how to be strategizing, understanding the world you're part of, always understanding the system, looking for opportunities and so on. And once they made these concepts, they tried them out with paper and everything, and nobody could work them because it was too complex. So they started looking into how do we make processes where people can work with these complex issues, whether it's customers or it's products or whatever. Well, perhaps we should do it in a creative way. So because it was Kjell they worked with, let's try to build it instead of just writing it. So they started building up these knowledge systems. And so they went from a theoretical research model and applying the Legos, the play, all these aspects into it, not because we wanted to play, but because we needed a driver to work with complexity. And that's how LEGO Serious Play evolved. After a number of years, they said perhaps other people could have the benefit of trying this out. And that's when a lot of people were invited in, like I was myself, to try out this marvelous tool. So what is it? Well, one thing I would say before, this is not sort of just some creative model that has just some people down in Billund have sort of played a bit in the back of the warehouse. It's quite extensively researched, also the theories behind the different models and how you work with the Lego bricks. These are just some examples, but I could fill about 50 pages with research articles around Lego Serious Play. So, if we're to hack into this, what is different? 10 minutes left. Okay. What is different? Actually, we use play as the driver. You talked about flow. I don't understand Finnish, but I understand flow. Flow is a theory from 1993 made by a psychologist called Micael, and he's an American. Micael started researching how do we make optimal sort of training experiences and optimal learning experiences. And he looked at kids. What do kids do when they really want to learn something? They play. Why? Because then flow, what characterizes flow is a state of mind where you can work with a lot of different topics and a lot of complexity, but it feels easy because you're challenged in the right way. He tried it out on adults too and found out it's exactly the same for adults, but we forgot to play. So we forgot optimal learning. So Lego Serious Play is all about getting adults to play, not for the sake of play, but because we want them to go into a different state of mind where they can hack into a lot more brain power and also into an area where it's easier for them. Then looking at kids, kids actually learn the world via stories. Some of you work with marketing, it's all about the storytelling. Why? Because it's the nearest our brain comes to doing it in real life. So we can play, we can work things out in a non-hostile way by telling stories and sharing stories. Our brain works this way. And also metaphors. Metaphors are actually sort of simplifications in order to understand something bigger. Kids use it all the time. They say, you're an Indian. Then everybody knows what that means to be an Indian. You're a cowboy now. Everybody knows what it means to be a cowboy. So metaphors are complexity killers. Another part is that knowledge is always sort of built together. Kids always tend to combine new knowledge all the time. So it's not sort of, so they're always building on top of the knowledge. They also use their hands in the knowledge process. As a driver for understanding things, they use their hands, inspire the brain, and then it goes like this. And then they use their different parts of imagination in order to find solutions. So what is Lego Serious Play? It's getting adults to go back to a toolbox that is highly anchored into ourselves for optimal learning. So what do? We do exercises where we actually get people into flow, and we use these aspects in order to explore certain topics. It might be customer experience, it might be something else, and we create knowledge systems when we do this. This is a knowledge system from a workshop. They're actually building here in the middle. They've co-created what does the value proposition of our company look like. Then they created here all the different aspects that actually sort of influence our value proposition. And here are some of the discussions this has led to via the participants. Are all our potential end users considered? Was one of the questions that popped up. They discussed via the models. Have our partners sufficient room for maneuvering? Is our retail part the largest in the landscape? So it's not a matter, the aim is not to build beautiful landscapes. It's actually to facilitate the work with complexity and understanding and co-creation of knowledge, and also the dialogue around some complex issues. But because this is done using the toolbox I talked about before, our brain can work with a numerous number of models. It's easier for our brain to work multidimensional than one-dimensional, like paper or graphs or whatever. I've tried this with one of the biggest offshore projects, the Siemens Wind Power, where we built all of the project and explored it from start to end. The landscape was about 10 meters times 20 meters. And because it was done in this way, creative way, they could remember each model. Saying, okay, if we hit this part of the harbor in Amsterdam, what happens over here? So they use the knowledge landscape, and because it's done in a way our brain likes, they can remember anything. Because it hacks into the right brain, which can operate with around a couple of million different things, at least. It's not rocket science. It's a matter of asking the right questions and ask people to build the answers instead of writing them. And then telling a story around their model. It goes much deeper, this storytelling, than just a piece of paper around the customer. It's done based on a lot of theory, so these knowledge systems are built from certain steps, certain rules that the facilitator knows, so that you get the maximum out of the session. And you can fast track this. My bet is, I'll bet you any day that I can do results with this faster than you can do with paper and graphs. Because you get people to play, and then once they apply, they just keep on going. It's fast. And don't be afraid that you get the knowledge out of it, because it's built in. You will test the landscape, you'll play scenarios, you'll get plans out of it, you just do it in a different way. One other thing that is built into the concept that the scientists made was saying, we cannot predict tomorrow. We cannot alter the past, but what we can focus on is right now. What does the customer experience look like right now? What can we do about it right now? Drawing in both past and future. And I really like that about the concept, is that it's done real time. Saying to each employee, what can you do right now to improve this customer experience? These are just some examples, because I'm running out of time. These are just some examples that, at least within the 500 workshops I've worked with, this tool has been used for. And now we're working with designing special customer experience and employee experience workshops. And I'll show you a roadmap for that just after this. These are some of the clients. We've worked with it over the years. I actually also tried it in Finland a couple of times many years ago at AstraZeneca in Finland. Here's, for instance, a roadmap. We are going to build models around this, and it's actually part of the business model canvas, as the value proposition canvas it's called, combined with the customer journey. So what we do is that and also combined with aspects from Lego Serious Play around the company and the identity of the company. So we actually start off with building, how do we see our company? What's our value proposition in this company? What products do we have to support this value proposition? Then we turn to our clients. We select certain persona that are important for our business. And we build 3 aspects with each client in Legos. The customer jobs they want us to solve, the pains and gains they would like to work with or have help to overcome. And then we sort of make a comparison between this side and find out where do we have gain creators in our business, where do we have pain relievers in our business. And then we even top this with saying, okay, let's take one of these people and see what's their journey in relation to our business. And because we're doing it in a creative way, we can work with a lot of data here, and we can have co-creation around this, we can have co-discussions, etc., etc. And there we find future actions. This is an example, and could look like this on a table once you build all these aspects and combine it. Everybody in the workshop knows exactly what this means, what this little man means, because they've heard the story about it, and then they can remember it. We did a test, went back to people with pictures 1 year after. Said, can you remember what you did on this workshop? Yeah, I remember the little Lego man here, he moved over here and rah, rah, rah. So they remember quite well. So I'm not advocating for doing it creatively for the sake of creativeness, but because it will be easier for you to get good results with the employees because they work in a different way. So why would I, for instance, embark on working with CX in a creative way? Using Lego Serious Play? Because then flow, play is the driver, it becomes much easier for people. It's done in a creative and disruptive way, and imagination will lead to new ground. Because once you play, imagination will kick in and it will take you new places. Involvement and commitment to the process, so you're already starting to implement actually when you do the co-creation on the workshop. Multi-dimensional and multi-sensory, everybody can participate. Even this, I've had a workshop where 2 people were working together. It was the blue collar from the warehouse working with the CEO all day building models. They didn't care about what functions they had. They were just co-creating. Quite funny to see. Joint exploration and knowledge building, co-creation and implementation. Complexity killing, its multidimensional metaphors will do the killing of the complexity because it becomes easier using metaphors. Non-hostile environment via play means that we haven't got the feelings in the equation. It's not you and me, we're talking about models on the table. I forgot that in my presentation, but I also studied a bit of psychology. And this part here is actually externalization. It's easier to talk about models on the table than you and me. Much easier. Common real-time overview. What can we do right now? And then, of course, once you have an experience like this, you'll also have some team building as part of the creation. I would have liked to have about 2 hours for this, but you have the same feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Micael.
Thank you.